Hi guys, welcome back to the next lesson. So in this lesson we're going to take a look at client authorization. So we implemented global context last lesson, and in this lesson we're going to try and wire up our login/register via the authbox component. We're going to update the state with the current user and log them in properly, and then we're going to do some conditional buttons depending on whether it's kind of like a user, whether we're logged in the user in the header. So if we're logged in, we want to show a logout button. If not, we want to show login/register buttons. So let's go back to our code. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the header component. We're already in the header component here. And I'm going to do some conditional logic inside of this header component. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to check what our current path name is. So I'm going to, from React Router DOM, I'm going to make use of use location, which is a hook provided by React Router DOM. So use location. And I'm going to, inside of that use location, inside of the component, I'm going to destructure path name from that hook, which is use location. Here, I've got the logout button. I'm going to actually replace those with links for now. So we're going to ignore the logout button for now. We'll add that in once we've got some user authorization. In fact, we can do that conditional logic now. What we can do is we can import the use in curly brackets, use global context, and that's just automatically imported that from context global context for me. And I'm going to get the user from destructure and get the user from use global context. Now, if there is a user, we want to log out. So if there is a user, I want to return this logout button. So I'm going to do some conditional logic here, which is question mark. Inside that question mark in the rounded brackets, I'm going to add our logout button. So if there is a user, we're going to log out. Otherwise, I want to show login/register buttons. So I'm going to show a link to /register, and it's going to have a class name of button and register. So if there is no user, show this register button. So it should change to a register button there. I need to go to the main.scss here, and I'm going to go to my button styling, and I need to make some changes to .button. So I'm going to search in the file for .button, found it here on line 65. I'm going to add text decoration none. So if it's a link, there we go, no text decoration. I'm also going to add a disabled state for later on. So &:disabled. So if the button is disabled, we want no pointer events in point-events, none, and the opacity is going to be 0.5. We'll make use of that later on. What have I done wrong here? Why does it not like that? Pointer events needs an S on the end there. Okay, let's go back to the header for now. So if we're not logged in, which we're not, we want to show this register button. I want to change this button though. So if I'm on the register page, I want the button to be login. If we're on the login page, I want the button to be register. So we've got our path name here. So I'm going to add some more conditional logic after this colon here. If path name is equal to /, which is our login, route, we're going to show this button. Otherwise, we're going to show, oh, we've got some errors in our code there, so I need to do question mark after that path name check. Otherwise, we're going to show a link. I'm going to copy and paste this link up here. And that link is going to take us to home, and that's going to take us to login. So there's some conditional logic here. It's a bit confusing. It's hard to read, I know. So if you're logged in, if there is a user, we're going to show the logout button. If we're not logged in and we're on the login page, we'll show the register button. If we're on the register page, we'll show the login button, and vice versa. So we can switch between the pages there. I'm also going to wire up this button whilst we're here. If we go to our global context, we created our logout function here. So I'm going to import that logout function via the global context here. And then I'm going to add an on-click event to this button. So if we click on this button, I'm going to use the function logout. So we can't really test this at the moment, but if we are logged in, then if we click this button, it will log us out. Okay, so that's the header. That's some conditional logic on the header for us there. I'm going to go to authbox, the authbox component now. And this is where it's going to get a bit messy, not messy, but harder to follow, a bit more in depth. So stick with us on this one. So let's open up the auth box component from there. I'll just click on that. So at the moment, it's all just a dummy, bit of dummy data. What I do want to do is at the bottom of it, if it's not on the register page, if we're on the login page, I want to add a little link saying something like, if you're not a member, register. So let's add that in. Where should we add that in? Underneath the button? I think underneath the button works. So inside there, if it's not register, so if we're not in the register auth modal, we're going to return, and I'm going to do question mark. We're going to return something in here. Otherwise we're going to return something in these rounded brackets. So I'm going to make a div of the class auth_register. And I'm going to return a p tag, not a member. Then I'm going to put a link in here. And it's going to be to/register. And inside of our link, we are going to take them to, we're going to put register now. And then I'm going to copy and paste this. I'm going to put this in the rounded brackets down here. I'm going to do the opposite. So if it is register, already a member, I'm going to take them to the home page and change this to login now. So we're going to get issues because we have not imported a link. So I'm going to go to the top of this auth box. I'm going to import curly brackets link from React router DOM. Okay, so not a member, register now. Already a member, login now. Let's go back to our styling quickly. Let's find auth. So there's our auth there. And underneath footer and error, I'm just going to refer to my previous code to see what styling I did. We're going to do and __ register text align center. We're going to add a margin top 20 pixels. The P tag is going to have a margin bottom of 0. And the A tag in there is going to be color of white. $white. Font weight of 700. Text decoration none. Transition all 0.3 seconds ease. And then when we hover over it, and :hover, we are going to set the opacity to 0.7. So there we go. We'll just start up that quickly. Okay, that's all nice and styled. Let me zoom in a bit on this. Register now, login now. Okay, so it's still a dummy component at the moment. We need to now start wiring all of this up. This is going to be a bit of a task here. So I want to, first of all, I need to set up some, I need to basically make sure that we can get the data out of these fields here, these inputs that we've created. So we need to set these to some state. So we're going to make some new state. We're going to do const square brackets email, set email. And that's going to be equals to react.useState and then empty quotes. And then on the email field here, on the input, we need to make some changes to this input here. It's going to be value equals email in curly brackets. And then we need to add an onChange event. OnChange equals, and I'm going to open up a function. We're going to use e, which is the event. We're going to set email to e.target.value. So now I can test this. When I type in here, you can see that it changes and it will be setting our email state to whatever we type in here. I'm just going to increase the font size on our fields quickly. So I'm going to go back to this. I'm going to go to the field and this input here. I'm just going to make a font size of 1.25 so we can read it a bit nicer. Okay, so we've done that for email. We need to do that for every other field now. So the next one is password. Const square bracket password, set password equals react.useState empty quote there for an empty string. Ignore all of this auto fill in. Chrome is really annoying on there and it's not easy to reset. So it should look like that. We also have a name field. So const name set name. If we're in, this is if we're in the register version of the auth box. We're going to use state empty quote const, and then what else do we have? Confirm password. Set password equals react.use state, and again an empty string. Okay, I'm going to move this password and leave confirm password just to make it nicer there. It doesn't like half of these here. Why is that not building? Set password is already okay. It should be set confirm password there, and that fixes our issues for us. So what we just did on the email field, we now need to do on each other field. So the value of this password field is password, and then on change e set password e.target.value. So that's the password field setup. Value equals, this one is confirm password. On change e set confirm password e.target.value. Very repetitive here. And oh, do we not have a name field somewhere? The name field is at the top. So value equals name, and then an on change of e set name e.target.value. Okay, so we now should have wired up all of our inputs there, all of our state there. You can see that none of these are grayed out, so we're using all of those. So I think we've done that correctly. So we now need to, we also want to set some state. So when we click the register button, I want to have a loading state. So we're going to have loading, set loading, and that's going to equal react.use state, and that's going to be a Boolean. So by default, it's false. When we click that button, it's going to be true. And we're also going to have errors. So const errors, set errors equals react.use state, and that's going to be an empty object. So if there are any validation errors when we submit our form, we will set the errors there, and we can output them on the front end. So what we now want to do is, there's a number of things we want to do. So we need to make a onSubmit event. So when we submit our form, it will trigger our onSubmit function. So on our form here, I'm going to make onSubmit equal to onSubmit. And we're going to make an onSubmit function here. So const onSubmit equals, I'm not going to make this a synchronous function. It's going to take in e, and we're going to do e.prevent defaults. That's the event when you click on, when you submit the form. I don't want it doing anything special, so I'm going to prevent default on that one. And as soon as we click on submit, I want to set loading to true. And when we set loading to true, I'm going to go down to the bottom, and I'm going to disable this button if we're in a loading state. So you can't click it multiple times. You can't submit multiple times. This button also needs to have the type of submit on it. Okay, so this is quite a complex component in the fact that we could be either registering, or we could just be by default logging in. So I'm going to make a empty data object here. So let data equal empty object. And if we are registering, we need to collect, we need to set the data equal to, we need access to name, we need access to password, confirm password, and also email. I'll put the email at the top where it should be, email there. So that's the data we're going to send to our API. If we're not registering, if we're just logging in, all we need is the email and the password. So that's our data being set there. And then what we're going to do is we're going to make an Axios post request. So I need to import Axios up here. So we're going to make a request to our backend. And that the route depends on whether we're registering or logging in. So if we're registering, so I'm going to do if register, our route is going to be /API/auth/register. Otherwise, we are going to be going to, so /API/auth/login. But we're always going to pass in comma data. And then I'm going to put a dot then on the end of this. And inside of our dot then, we are going to open up a function with, we don't actually need access to the res, so we're just going to open up a function there. We'll add something to this function in a minute. but we also need a catch. So if there is an issue here, I'm just going to scroll down to the bottom so we get rid of the errors. So if there is an issue here, error, we're going to have an error, and we're going to set loading to false. And if there is error, we're going to do $.dot, which means if these properties exist on error and if data exists on response, we're going to set our errors to error.response.data. If there's no issue, then we're going to make use of our global context, and we're going to get the current user, which in our global context, so I'm going to call that function there, but I still need to import it. I'll do that in a second. So if we do log in successfully, I'm then going to use get current user. It does repeat the request to get the current user. That's fine, but it also grabs our to-dos, which is the important bit here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to import, what do we want? Use global context. And you can see I've got IntelliSense here, and it's importing it from /context/global context. I'm going to make use of get current user, so I'm destructuring from use global context. So if we do a response and it comes back properly, we're just going to go and get the current user. So when you register or when you log in, you get an access token set. We'll then use get current user, which will make an API request to get the current user's data and all of its to-dos, and that should work properly there. So I've now got our error set up. So if I submit this form here with no correct functionality, I'm going to open up DevTools. I'm going to make this big. I'm going to open up the DevTools. I'm going to go to the components, and I'm going to click on the authbox component, and you can see we've got a load of state here. It's not labeled up very well, but this bottom one here we can tell is our errors. If I click register here, you can see we've got a load of errors here: the email, the name, the confirm password, that kind of jazz. This should really be empty as well. It's just autofill, ignore autofill. So you can see all the errors being set there when we submit. So we're making the API requests, and if I go to the console, you'll also see that we can see that it's a bad request. That's exactly what we'd expect because we've got no proper data. So we need to output those errors onto our front end to tell us that there is something wrong. There's no use just kind of having it there. It needs to be outputted on the front end. So with all of our errors, underneath each field, I'm going to check for errors. So I'm going to check for if there is an error related to name. So I'm going to open up curly brackets. If errors.name, so if on the error object there is an error with the property of name, I'm going to do and to return. I'm going to do open brackets a p element with the class of auth__error. And then inside of there, I'm going to output the error related. So errors.name. So now you can see that the name field cannot be empty. That's the error. We're now outputting it. I need to copy and paste this now, and I'm going to do it. I'm going to change all the values for each field. So email. So if errors.email, auth error, output the error to do with emails. There you are. If there are errors dot, what's this one? Errors dot, oh, I'll copy it. I'll just paste this in. I'll paste that here. There are errors dot password. Then I'm going to output errors dot password. And if there are errors dot confirm password, then I'm going to output errors dot confirm password. So I can also remove this comment below here. So I'm going to do that. And then what I'm going to do here is there's going to be a general error, which is that something went wrong. I'm going to make this a bit smarter. So I'm going to check that if the object is not empty, if the errors state is not empty, then I'm going to output something saying you have some validations error. So object.keys errors. So I'm doing object.keys.errors. If the length of those keys is more than 0, so if there are errors, I'm going to return a p with the class name of auth__error, and I'm going to put you have some validation errors. And I'm going to get rid of this error message below here. However, so that all works. Now I'm going to refresh to get rid of those validation errors. If I go to the login route and click login here, you have validation errors. That doesn't make sense. When we have errors on the login route, we basically set it, it was errors, and then there will be a property on errors called error. So we can output that instead. So I'm going to do some conditional logic here. I'm going to do if register. We're going to output this error message. You have some validation errors. Otherwise, I'm going to output errors.error. So if we're in the login route, I want to output errors.error. And here you see here, there was a problem with your login credentials because we didn't want to label them exactly to the email or password field because you don't want users knowing what they've got wrong. So let's get rid of this out of the way. So I click login there. You can see that it's all set. It's all correctly set there. Okay, so if I go to the register route here, we can click register. We'll get our validation errors. But instead, what we want to do is we want to get the current. We want to now try and log in properly or register properly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the following. Since we get current user, when we get current user, it dispatches a set user here. So when it sets the user will no longer be null. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to import user from global context. And my aim here is that if we get a user, if our user is set, I'm going to navigate away from this page to /dashboard. /dashboard we'll build out in another tutorial. But for now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make use of, so React.useEffect. And I'm going to do an arrow function in that use effect. And inside my square brackets, my dependency is user. So if user changes, then this React use effect function will be called. And I'm going to check if user, I'm going to navigate to, we haven't imported navigate yet, but I will in a second, to /dashboard. So if we log in correctly or we register correctly, it will take us away because the user will be set in the global context. It will take us and navigate us to the dashboard. So I need to import navigate, and that's a React router DOM hook. So I'm going to make use of link and use navigate after link. Use navigate after link imported from React router DOM. I'm going to add it to the top here. So const navigate equals use navigate. And then this will allow us to navigate away essentially if our login is successful or our registration is successful. Because we're using navigate in here, we need to add it as a dependency. So if navigate, I'm going to do if user, and I'm just going to check that navigate is not null. It's pretty much guaranteed that navigate won't be null, seeing as it's a hook from React router DOM, but it's always good to check. We don't want any errors in our code in case navigate is null. So if I set this here, I'm then going to log into my test account, test@test.com, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Chrome's going to probably tell me that I have an insecure password, seeing as I've set it to 1, 2, 3, 4. Ignore that. So I'm going to go to the network tab, and we're going to watch the requests come in. So if I click login, you see here's your check passwords. Ignore that. So what happened there is I logged in. We did our login API call. That came back with a 200 OK response. And then it did get current user, where it grabbed the current user. You see it in our response. If I go to preview in this tab, you can see that our data came back. And we got our, we also did a call to localhost 3000 API /to-do/current. So we also got our to-do, we collected our to-dos basically. We also, you see here, our code jumped in here for use effect, and we navigated away to /dashboard. We can now test our logout function as well. I haven't tested this yet. If I click logout, you can see that it then you can see that we're still on the dashboard route. We haven't got any logic to route us away yet. We need to build that logic to route us away from the dashboard route, but we haven't got a dashboard component yet. But if I go to cookies, you can see that I have no cookie set, so it's removed the access token. And inside of components, if I go to my context provider, you can see that the user has been set to null because we've logged out, which is brilliant. So let's go back to the home page there. You see it's a login route there. This also works, this also kind of doubles up this React use effect, because if I try to go to this component, this will also run on mount. These always run on mount. So if I log in again, so I'm going to go to login as test at test.com. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to log in. Ignore the check passwords. It pops up every time. If I try and go to the home page, which is the login page, you'll see that it won't let me. It redirects me to /dashboard because this is kicking in and telling me not to. Same with register. If I try and go to register, it will redirect me to dashboards, which is brilliant. It means that we then can no longer access the login pages if we're logged in. So that's all working brilliantly. So what I'm now going to do is I'm not going to build too much of it, but I'm going to start the dashboard component. So inside components, I'm going to make a new file, dashboard.js. We're going to import React from React. We're going to import, in curly brackets, use global context from /context/global context. And we're also going to use navigate from /, it's React rooted DOM. So we're going to import that hook. So we're just going to build the basic dashboard now to basically, if we're not logged in, I don't want people accessing dashboard, so I'm going to route them away. So we're going to create our functional component, const dashboard equals arrow function. And we're going to return just a h1 of dashboard for now. And then we're going to export default dashboard. What we're going to do is we're going to build in some logic for this as well. So first of all, I'm going to go to, now that we've built that, I'm going to go to my layout component. I'm going to create a new route below here. So I'm going to create a route, the path of /dashboard, and the element is going to be the dashboard component we've just made. I then need to import that dashboard component with my other components, import dashboard from dashboard, save that. And you can see now that our dashboard component, now that we're on the /dashboard page, we're getting our dashboard component, our h1 hello world there. So we now want to do that whole thing. If there's no user, I don't want people accessing /dashboard. It should be protected. So I'm going to make use of const. I'm going to destructure user from use global context. And I'm going to also use const navigate equals use navigate. And we're going to make use of React use effect again. Use effect. An arrow function inside of there. And inside of our square brackets of the React use effect hook, we're going to make use of user and navigate. And again, so what we're doing here is the opposite of the auth box. In the auth box, we checked if there was a user, navigate away. If there is no user, so if user is set to null, navigate to /, so it's taking it back to the login page if we're not logged in, and add navigate, allow for our navigate function there. So what we should see now is when I log out, we won't be able to access /dashboard. It will redirect us. So if I click log out, it now takes us to our login page. If I try and access that whilst not logged in, it will redirect us. It will not allow me to access that page if I'm not logged in as a user. So that's brilliant. That's exactly what we'd expect. And it means we can now move on to the next lesson where we're going to start outputting our to-dos. So thanks for watching. I'll catch you guys in the next lesson.